It's a beautiful joy today to be introducing a mentor, a friend, a woman with just amazing spirit, who's inspired a lot of people and really helps. A lot of people ask me, what's her title, and I'm like, well, she's the Queen of Hawaii. And then
Oh, no.
like, what are you talking about? Hawaii has no monarchy. I was like, yep. But for me, it's like, um, she, Tumu Naleialoha. She, to me, someone that she's the Kumu Hula, the master hula, the kahu, the keeper. To me, it's of traditions, and all these stories are wealth. And just she doesn't live in a big castle, but the Big Island is her castle. You could say. And for me, it's someone who can maintain the stories and the dances, and that's richness, and that's wealth, and that's what we need more of in this day, and that's what we aspire to create that space to share in our sanghas, and in the community. We're using the yoga arts as a vehicle to hold healthy space for these communities to be able to speak up and thrive and hear the lessons, because today they're more important, and evidently more important than ever. So welcome, Tumu. I am so joyful to be able to share this. All right. I was trying to figure out the presentation is Zenith to Horizon, and I was trying to figure out how to pronounce this on my own, but probably, Maika.
My Hoʻokuʻi Hālāwai.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my Hoʻokuʻi Hālāwai is from the zenith to the horizon. So depending on where you are at the time, but to know that you only have a quarter of that time available to you because of the complete what you might call it, spin around, I guess, the turn, and our day actually starts, the po actually starts the night before. We're so used to starting it, well, the daylight is our time, but it starts the night before because the po is the time of the ancestors.
In there, and we're on here.
Okay, so so they come on, and they they're present, and then when the sun comes up, then it's time for us to start to do what we need to do. And yeah, so my Hoʻokuʻi Hālāwai, bringing in into your own space what you need to have in your space. And today it's interesting. Well, it's interesting. It's whatever it is, whatever's happening around us. We have a bigger, I guess, scope now to have to deal with. We have to look at things that we've never, well, we actually can look at it in here. Have a limited amount, or not limited, but that's what we know. So our, the po'o, our lolo, our brains, we gather all this information, and then that's what we have. We have memory, and we have what we're doing and what we're supposed to do. But for us regaining, today we're regaining as a people, being here in Hawaii, and taking on what Francisco's talking about, queenship. That's a weird thing. It's queenship is something that comes with it comes with something. It doesn't come. I mean, there's no job description. I think we have such a title and what we're supposed to be according to the title. But I've been working a lot and discovering a lot of messages or a lot of things that, you know, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, they didn't know it and they had to grow into it, but passed on to them. You know, every generation we get past, something else is passed down and passed down, and then we have to live with it in the time that we're in the present, which is the present is you know, it's scary because we tend to, I think nowadays we tend to make a lot of plans for what's coming up. And then when those plans don't pan out the way we think they're supposed to, then we get all stressed out and it doesn't work out. But I know that now, I really know that living in the present means that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And so if it happens, being able to deal with what happens. And I know that the timing of everything, to know that timing is so important. And when we, not to plan on what the time brings us, but rather to know what our timing is. And we're in a, you know, I speak about us today in the present because it's a whole new life. I see those like you, Francisco, Chuck, you know, everybody who's been in Kenny, we've been in that circle of friends that don't go away, because it's very much, it stays there, it stays together because of what we refer to as, you know, working together. So the word today is used. There's a few Hawaiian words that are used, and I think today maybe overused or misunderstood. And so one of the words that has really come to light is the word ohana. And it actually, the root word of that is oihana, O-I-H-A-N-A. Because oihana is occupation. What do you do? If you come from a family of fishermen, then you're going to be fishermen. If you leave that and go with, perhaps you marry someone who's not fishermen, they're the gardeners or the people who grow the food on the land, then you need to live that way. But there is that constant cooperation that you have to have between each other so that you can keep the group and the people and the lives going. So when we talk about oihana and that occupational knowledge, the occupational knowledge of our people for about 200 years now has been taken out. It's like we took out the stomach, we took out the middle of the body got gone. It went someplace because it was just, the head was moving around, and you know, the feet were taking it where it had to go, and the hands were doing what it was supposed to do. But the inside, the na'au and all of the inside, the main part of the body was there physically, and it was managing itself. But there was a lot of care that needed to be put into it. But it needed to have knowledge. It needed to have knowledge of what is really the occupation. What do you do? Who are you? Are you, what is your purpose? And so the purpose gets, it doesn't disappear we're finding now, and I'm especially finding that it's been protected, and it's been protected by the chants. The Oihana has been protected by the prayers. It's been protected by the generations before us who put it into a form which is hula. And hula becomes the sacred form of a a grouping of going from the zenith, going from the top to the horizon. So once you create, or you are in that space, you're able to communicate, you're able to listen, not so much to talk and ask questions and expect people to teach you what you want to learn, but rather to listen to what someone has to say and someone has to teach. So the time, it's opening a new chapter, and the chapter opened because it had to. And so accepting as maybe I was or wasn't of different things that now have come into my life, the acceptance of new surroundings, new people, new things to do are still in that same continuity. There's still a continuity because it's still connected to what was, to what I was familiar with. And I say that because this year will be the end of July 27 will be 6 years since Herman has passed away. And so that has changed a whole, he moves on to that other place. He moves on to that sacred place, the sacred place that we know that the people who we're connected to move on to.
And you guys, just a quick, for reference, Herman is her love. So I'll speak to him briefly, if you don't mind me saying something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Man, this guy is solid. Herman Kunewa, I met Herman and I was together years ago, and we got to travel to some beautiful places in Santa Fe, Petroglyphs National Monument, through a vehicle we called the Mosaic in Motion. We put these events together, and part of it was to preserve the stories, and the national parks being a government entity, sometimes we had to hold them accountable because they were a native land. And part of the challenges were that Pele Volcanoes National Park, sometimes they were putting stringent orders on communities from their kind of sharing their art and their respect to Pele in their ways. So we met that way. I went out and visit this amazing family and their son Puo, and we drank a lot of kava root. Went out to the farms. I think they wanted to see if they could trust me or not. And drank a lot of kava, got very giddy, and we talked story, and they're my family. So yeah, so she's right now. Tumu's referring to Herman, her love.
Yeah. So that that kind of separation is there's no real separation, but it has to strengthen it. The connection is strengthened by how spiritually connected you are, how spiritually connected I am, and not spiritually connected to that person. So both of us, Herman and I, lost our parents, or not lost our parents, but our parents passed away, and we didn't have parents around. as long as when we remember growing up, our grandparents were still around. Some of us, our great grandparents, were still living. So I was raised by my great grandmother. And so that knowledge and that their way of being went, over the years, it changed. It changed as to how we looked at our surroundings and the way they lived and the way they did things. We started to move more and more in a north-south direction. They didn't. They moved in an east-west direction. So on the island, there's not, it's big. Like our island is a large island compared to the other islands in Hawaii. However, the landmass, and what's accessible, we didn't have access to places that now we can go to anytime because we go. However, we still feel we were always taught that you have to have a purpose. You have to have a purpose to go someplace if you're going to go far away from home. And I learned that early on from my grandmother, because I started with the Park Service at Pu'uhonua Ohanaunau in 1971. So I was just graduated out of high school. Month later, I go down and I start to work there. So the drive was 40 miles one way. And my grandmother, my grandmother pretty much kind of forbid that to happen, because she said, oh, no, you don't, we don't come from there. We're not from South Kona. We're from here. We don't have family, da, 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 da. And my mother, being the age she was and the generation she came from, she said, well, we have to let her go because this is an opportunity. But it was really now I realize more and more that it was an assignment. It wasn't, it was supposed to happen. But getting there was a whole nother story, because it was a ways away from home. And, to drive there every day and then to drive back home again. And it was, now I think about it, I would never do it today. Why I did it then, it was because it was opportunity. So again, we switch, we start to have to look again at where we start from. Yeah, what is the zenith, and then what is the horizon? So so everything that has come to be in the life that is here today, and the foundation that has been built was built over over 40 years of doing the work and being in that space of oihana. What is the first occupation? What is the occupational knowledge that you need to have in order to do what you need to do? So today, there's so much that it comes about. And there's two things that have been happening. Is one part of it is that healing has to take place. The healing is taking place. The healing is constant. And the healing is about not being angry, not being so mad at what happened to Liliuokalani, the queen. What happened to her? She was imprisoned in her own palace, and in a room that was actually one of the guest rooms. She didn't live in the palace, but she was imprisoned in a bedroom. And so she lived with that. She didn't want for our people to have to be, although there was some, people who they wanted to fight and they wanted to get out there, and they did. But she wouldn't have that because she knew that that would be the end. So every generation, in all of the families and the people who have come to Hawaii and made Hawaii their home over that 200 or so year period, from the time that Kamehameha passes, especially in 1819, it's a work in progress, and we've become more aware of not being angry with people and not being so sad about what happens, what happens with people. Because if we hang on to that, then we don't get anywhere. But it's not an easy thing to do. We want to just get it over with, want to just move on and not have to deal with that. So the steps that to take that have been over the years, different people have put together, have written books, have done the work, and they're our contemporaries. They're my contemporaries today, and many of the women that I respect and I look up to, and I know not only because of what their work is today, but also because of what their work was in the time that, their parents and their grandparents, who they come from. So my upbringing in hula with Lokalia Montgomery.
Tumu, also, just Tumu, briefly, I want you to know that I have the images you sent me. So if you ever want me to put them up, we can keep flowing and I can share them later. Just let me know.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so my teacher, she her knowing about how to teach and how to take someone who and to groom them. She was known for being like the last teacher of when you have your teachers and those your mentors, and as you grow into what you need to be. So what was happening during that time, and being a child and learning, that is what that's the time that she took, but she was also moving up, in our lives. So we believe that, like this photo, this is a good photo, I must say. This was, so I'm wearing limu kala. I'm wearing limu, same ipu and same pahu. And this is a film that's called Kumu Hula. And we did that in Kona. And the limu kala is a seaweed, but it is worn so that this was the first laid that I used when I first danced, my first performance with her. And the reason for that is because when you're first learning, you have to dive down. You're put into the ocean. You're put into the ocean by the teacher. But you're always, you stay in touch with the teacher, because it's like the parents. You stay in touch with your parents. You stay in touch with those who are taking care of you, because you're still learning. And they let you go, but they keep pulling you back, and then you go again and they keep pulling you back. But as you grow older and older, you get more into beyond the limu. The limu grows, the limu is the underwater garden. Yeah, it grows with all the small, the shells, the shellfish, the small fish, they're all close to shore. So the teacher keeps that, will keep that close by. And this photo is a beginning. This is an ascent. This was when we took Herman's ashes to Waiapuka. And Waiapuka is up here in North Kohala, northeast of us. And it is a freshwater place. So I'm preparing before we have the ceremony. And so it's the same idea that we enter again into the water because we're now in that state where it's free now. We're free to move on, and we're free to but we're still connected. And the connection is our life and what we've accomplished and who we are and how we have treated ourselves in the present time. So that so the movement eiho is to go to dive deep, to dive down into the water. This is that last one. Yeah, if we go back to this one, this is Uncle Alva. He's a Lomi teacher. He's Pu'o's Lomi teacher. Alva Andrews, and they're from Waimanalo. This is another one of his students in the back, and then Herman is lying down. He's being he's having his Lomi from Pomai, and we this was actually Pu'o's first introduction to being around them. This wasn't Pu'o's first teacher. Pu'o's first teacher is from Kona. And then after Herman passes, we were trying to figure out what to do, where we were going and what was going to happen. And when I contacted Uncle Alva, he said, okay, send him down. And Uncle Alva has passed also, but Pu'o is still there and still doing his Lomi on Oahu. And so, but the connection, this Oihana, the Lomi, the massage, that is still a deep connection. The mentoring of a young person and having but still allowing for the order of things to take place. Because Uncle Alva was also, he was a Lua practitioner. So he dealt with the physical part of, which is another part of Hula. So Hula and Lua are both intertwined with each other. And so you need to have both in your life. So it worked out really well because the chants, the dances, the movement, what is being done is all one and the same. So Pu'o's connection and going down to be with Uncle Alva in that time for maybe about 8 months. He was with him.
Pu'o is Kumu's son, so you guys know that's her son.
Yeah, that's the son. And then there's today there is a, we have in the 70s, in the 80s, and today we have all these places and people and and things that have been events that we've put together and have contributed and been a part of, so that we can bring people together, bring ourselves together. And by bringing ourselves together and coordinating and having our students and our students' be a part of what takes place, we've, I believe that, you know, going from the zenith onto the horizon, we needed to keep that going. That there was never, we can be sad about things, we can be mad about things, but we know that we have to move on, and we have to appreciate, so that the gratitude and the appreciation of what we do have always should be more than what we don't have. And I remember that always with my, you know, with my mother, with my grandmother, and my upbringing is very, very female. Yeah, very, I mean, a lot of women, all of the women in my family, very strong women, and they ran the show. My grandmother said her grandfather would say, oh, you know, the boss, you got to go ask the boss, you know, and that would have been her grandmother because she was the boss. But there was always not so much a division of labor, but a recognition of the right side being male and the left side being female. And so you have Ku, the god Ku, and then you have the partner to God, the god Ku, which is the god of, you know, coming, the rising of the sun and the standing in the light. And then Hina, which is the moon, and the female, and the time after the sun is setting. So the sun sets, but it brings the new pole. It brings the next pole. So now, so when I, yes.
Interrupt you 1 second. Just listening to you, it makes me think we should do, you know, a whole presentation on just that, you know, that feminine energy that you surrounded yourself in your roots and your foundation. But that's for another day. Just thinking of
okay. He's writing down all the stuff already. So I just put together some notes, and I'm trying to figure out what I put together. Oh, I know. I wanted to focus though on Halimakua, who is an elder. These photos are all, oh, by the way, they're right down the road. They're at Pu'ukohola Heiau. This is Pu'ukohola Heiau. And this is a heiau that was built during the time of Kamehameha. And it is before Kamehameha becomes the sole ruler of all of the islands. But that history, we're rewriting our history. We're looking back now at what we've been, the information that we have today is good information. We have the dates, we have all of that information. We have all of the archaeology now that actually wasn't done until the archaeology was done in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And so the archaeology was discovered in our time. And this park, this historic site was opened in 1973. So I worked there, and Herman also worked there, but we were also responsible for the community, to bring in the cultural component that was needed in bringing together the community, bringing together not only a new community, but to to give the people who are in the families that are from there, and the families that are from here, and the families down at Honaunau. So everything starts at Honaunau, as far as community and having people being involved, and everyone bringing back the cultural component to what these places are and their significance. So the gratitude that people were able to come together had to come from the community. The Park Service is responsible and, you know, takes on the daunting, you know, work of having enough money to do all of the stuff to keep it open and keep it running and keep it safe, and so that people can become a part of it. And so our foundation, which is Kahua Na'oa'u, was founded actually here when we both worked at Pu'ukohola Heiau in 1976. And from then, but it was an organization, a nonprofit that was for Pu'uhonua o Honaunau, and that's how we get involved with the parks. But going back to Lili'uokalani, it's now I look back and I think, okay, so what's going to happen now? You know, it's not the same. Things have changed. Many things have changed. And so how do you take on a whole nonprofit organization and then be able to heal from all of the hurt, to heal from a lot of the things that I wish never happened? But now I look back and I think, well, if it didn't happen, I wouldn't know what to do or how to deal with what needs to be done today. And so the healing, you know, the healing process comes with this, actually all of the pictures. There's the other pictures of the ones of us dancing, like this one. This is below the heiau. Yeah, this one. This is below the heiau. This is at Pelikane, which was 2 years ago, 2018. And it is, I'm teaching, and these students, the participants come from all over the world. They came for a conference that was conducted for over a 20-year period. So we started the first one, well, from 2018, I guess 1998 or something like that. And every 4 years, there was a hula conference that was held on each of the islands. So this is, the first one was in Hilo, and then the last one was in Hilo. So it was very important because it gave the progression. It showed the progression of hula from its beginnings in our contemporary time. So many of the people, the original coordinators of Hālāwai, the people who first came to be part of it, and then those elders, my teachers, some of my teachers' students, the older students, were at the first one and the second one, and then after a while the third, and then the last one that we had, we didn't have the same people present, but we still established a legacy. So these kinds of events, and how do we transfer all of that? How do I transfer all of that so that today I'm doing something that's practical, that can be applied, and also that can be self-sustaining? And so that is why, going back to Lili'uokalani and how she wrote a whole volume of the Queen's Songbook. And many of those are prayers and what she believed needed to be done. She asked for forgiveness. she asked to forgive, to give her, you know, to give her the strength to forgive those who did the wrong, and that not for her to judge how wrong the wrong is, but rather for it to be left to be taken care of, so that she and her people would not be bitter about what had taken place. And so when we look at our history today, we are now finding ways to do that. And so a year ago, come July 17th, it will be a year ago that the stand was taken up at Mauna Kea. And so that whole premise, to have kapu aloha, to bring aloha back into its sacred place, so that aloha is not just, oh, aloha, welcome, you know, I love you, la, 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 but rather being a sacred way of being, and having to be face to face with people, and having that, this is my alo, this is my space. And then my breath I share because it is a welcome. And when I do that, I not so much open up myself, or you open yourself up, but we create a space. We create again that space so that we can communicate. So when we think of Liliuokalani, it was the same thing. She kept, she reminded the people, and she never gave up, because she was never taken off. Physically, she wasn't sitting on the throne anymore, but she was still there, and she still is there. There's still that queenship that still exists. So we look upon that as being the strength, and how we need to be very, when we think about what is going on, there's a process that Halimakua, who is an elder too, well respected by all of us, in his writings, he talks about reverse friction. And reverse friction is to take, because the ancestors, he says, the ancestors, and we also, now I finally realize what that means, is that the ancestors didn't have all the stuff we have today to deal with. So but the process of reverse friction takes us back, so that we go back to what the actual time is and what was happening then. Everything was always moving forward. It was about knowing that what we have today is so important that we need to keep it alive. We need to put it down in a form that we can put it down in, so that it can be kept, and it can be found later on by people who need to have it. And so the reverse friction process that I've started to do is, because Halimakua would always tell us, go read stuff backwards. Start with the end of the book and go backwards and read. Then you'll find out what happened in the beginning. So it's like, you know, we look at him and go, yeah, really, you know, you're going to read something backwards. And so instead of reading stuff backwards, I went to the chants, and I start with the chants backwards. I mean, I go with the chants with the ending and go back to the first verse and end it, you know, with the first verse. And it works. It actually puts one of the chants that we've been doing, you know, and people say, oh, we got to do that chant. We got to dance that again, over and over and over again. You know, we're doing the same dances. They're traditional dances. They were created in the time of Lili'o Kalani or Kamehameha. And mostly that, especially the Kalakaua time, the last two monarchs, right? That's the closest to us. So there were all those chants that we had from them, but the two that really stood out over and over again were Ea no Kavika and Elili'ue. And both of those are very basic when you look at the little translation. But when I start, so, you know, to do it over and over and over again, it becomes like a basic introduction dance. And then you don't, oh, well, that's, you know, kindergarten after a while when you get to be better at it. And, you know, the steps are simple. So when I reversed it, I thought, oh my gosh, you put Lili'o Kalani back in the throne again. So she just backs up and she reverses and she sits down again. And once she sits in her throne again, it becomes a whole different picture, because now Lili'u is actually sitting there, and she's and that throne room at the Iolani Palace is still there. You know, it's her throne, her, you know, the same one that Kalakaua sat in, the same chair. So now when I look at it, I think, okay, so that process works. You know, that process and putting something to the test with something that I already knew is a way of healing and helping to heal what perhaps was never healed and at the time, because it couldn't be healed, because the hurt was being done at the time. So each of the ali'i, each of our all of our families, and we in our own families know the amount of you know, struggles and what we need to take care of. But we also need to take care of it in a way that we can say that, okay, I am healed from that, so that I don't have, I'm not, you know, worried about that or thinking that it's going to be passed on and on and on and continued to the next generation, which doesn't help, you know, which won't make things happen in the future. So our whole process, so my whole process, the next process is to create, is to see how the new, or how we can put it into a native Hawaii practice, and practice being something that happens every day and something that happens so that different forms of healing can now enter comfortably into a tradition that has been here for thousands of years. And the parts of it, the plants that have to do with it, the sea life, the land, you know, the air quality, all of this is all part of that environment that is part of that healing. And we as a people have seen that happen, you know, in that time that Mauna Kea was taking place. What was happening on what we became to know as the Kukia'i Mauna, the protectors of the Mauna, the protectors of the mountain. For each person, it's different, but the purpose was to, we now have become those elders. We now are the kupuna, whether we want to be there, whether I want to be there or not. It happens. And so the process was for, or the idea was to go up there as the elders that are now here. But the fight began way back when. Yeah, for many of the ones who actually did get arrested, they were already arrested years ago. So this was, okay, if this is going to happen again, this is going to happen again. And it did happen early on, But what came out of that and is still happening today is such an awareness that has become worldwide, but it has become so overwhelming, it's a real release for us, because it is a way for us to say, okay, this is really the way it is. It is this way. We have things, we have parts of us, our islands have to be a certain way. We can't just be going on and on. Yeah, you can come to any place and every place you want to go and just go online and see, oh yeah, that's a cool place, da 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 da. And next thing you know, and then putting stones up or coral or wherever up in the middle of nowhere, and expecting it to give you some juju from wherever it is in the sky is not what it's about. But it's rather about what is underneath. And, you know, so 3 times a day doing chants that are in order with what is happening, what has happened before, but what is actually happening today. 3 times a day, and doing it consistently 3 times a day. And the technology that we have available to us today made it possible for all of us to be a part of it 3 times a day. And so that kind of determination and that kind of practice gave us more of that incentive and that independence to know that it can happen. We can make all of it, you know, get to that point. So so many things, everything is available to me. Everything is available to be made into to be put forward. And right now, the healing, you know, comes because it comes when it's accepted. And once the healing, I believe, is accepted, then it can happen. If it's not, and when that healing happens, the recognition of it and to acknowledge that that healing is taking place. So whether or not we as whether I accept that healing is what is up to me. So I can pick and choose processes of healing. But for a long time, or for those years, you know, over and over again, our healing was up here. You know, the mental, the memory, the fact that you didn't have what your knowledge was. So that occupational knowledge was all, people went crazy. And so we basically went crazy because connected to our you know, we were disconnected from what was the occupational knowledge, to having or trying to, and knowing that we could learn something that wasn't, that becomes our occupational knowledge. And then in our time, we have to reconnect where that occupational knowledge had roots in. Because what we were taught and how we were taught and the processes of being educated in a system that was not meant or designed to create your awareness and who you are as an individual, but rather to nationalize us in a system that wasn't ours, and so that we would be one way. And so that confusion and that ability not to recognize uh, what it is that you're supposed, who do you identify with? Are you this or are you that? Where do you come from? What do you do? And that was very important because this was the world, the 8 islands, the ocean, the sky, that's the world. And the connection is to those islands where we originally come from. So today that we've made those connections again, we hooked up again. We hooked up again with the rest of the world. And so now we get back into the flow. But that also was because of the different events that have taken place over these years. So to be able to share that, in the forms of the canoe, the va'a, with hokulea, with makali'i, with all of our voyaging canoes in the Pacific. We have the language and all of our languages now that are based on, that are coming back to their origin, our song, our dance, our food, understanding and knowing that we can, go back to that, but not go back to what we have assumed is Hawaiian, but to know that what was here is, it may not be here today, but the essence and the energy of it is still here. So that has been a real healing process, is having that energy, having that process, being able to capture that, or being able to get the mana from that. Because you can lose mana. Someone can steal your mana. So mana needs to be protected. But mana is a spiritual energy that you receive. And everyone, there's different degrees supposedly of mana that, some people inherit more mana than others. And yeah, maybe, but you still need to be able to cultivate that mana. You need to have, what is it that you want to do with the mana? Because mana can be energy that is very powerful. And if not used in the right way, it can be very detrimental to the person, and drive you crazy because it's just too much to have. I gotta laugh because that is getting too serious now. Okay, so
No, it's good. It's good. It's perfect. It's perfect. And there's so many parallels and discussions we've had. I was just riffing with Salim a little bit, like just with other elders who are in Ghana from our last presentation. And, we have to take care and hone that energy. And I think that's very important to today in these times of self-care that have been spoken of. And, and also another parallel was, instead of fighting, evolving,
yeah. Yeah.
and letting go, and not holding on, to understanding the pain, understanding the struggle, and not holding on, but evolving in order to bring some of these, you're saying, like, those times, there's a lot more going on today, but it's like today we also have more knowledge. If we really, there's all this information that's still there, like you say, that we can tap into to grow and keep building that community and that ohana.
Yeah. 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 Good summary.
Yeah, check. For me,
Good Havana.
guys, right now, this is my mentor right here. So I circle back to Hawaii whenever I can to keep feeding the lessons, and then I fly like a bee all over the world, So it's really a joy to be listening, Yeah, let's keep flowing. And you guys, right now, just to do a little time check, the sanghas are scheduled for 90 minutes. We're at 15 till. So at some point, like to open it up for questions too. What do you think of that, Tumu?
Oh, that's fine. I think as long as everybody's still on track, I'm still on track. I don't know if I'm still on track.
You're perfect on track. Perfect on track. The record is flowing. The record is flowing.
Yeah, sure. That's good. That's good. We can do question that. I like that. So who's on? I'm not seeing everybody.
Guys, so right now we have Kenny still on. Charles came in and left like 3 times because my Wi-Fi was out. But that's Charles, you know, coming and going. And Kenny right now, Kenny is the partner of one of my mentors as well, Ayantha Gant Wright, who's still with us very much, who actually brought all of us together initially. So much gratitude. And I'd like, you know, I'd like to open it up for everyone in the community here who's on. By the way, we are recording this presentation and we will be posting it on the blog section of the website because it's just a wealth of beautiful stories and information. And we want to preserve these stories too. I've been talking to Tumu for years about cultivating this space that we're in now, this online platform, where we can share her stories. We, you know, up late night, 2 a.m. in Maui talking, and a lot of gratitude to be circling back to do this now. So I'd like to open it up for you guys to ask any questions you wish. Please.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Hopefully you can see me, Tumu. This is Salim. I first wanted to say, well, thank you so much for sharing. Really beautiful presentation and offering. Felt like an offering to me. And for me personally, a lot of connections with what I feel like is a you know, experience of a lot of African descended people in the diaspora, like this notion, this idea you're talking about of reconnecting. You said a lot of things, but some things that stood out, you know, to know what was here, and the energy and the spirit of it is still here. You mentioned we went crazy because we were disconnected from the occupational knowledge. We had to reconnect with that occupational, with what that occupational knowledge was. And again, these are things that really, to me, resonated with, you know, a common experience of a lot of people in the world, and for me in particular, someone of African and mixed descent. In particular, you touched on the concept of mana, and I feel like you, you know, you kind of, you know, touched on it. But I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about it, about what role it plays culturally, spiritually, amongst the people, and maybe even, you know, how we could think about using or cultivating it with a particular direction, or with whatever the need might be in this particular day and age. If that, hopefully that question makes sense.
Yeah, that's I'm working on it. Well,
great.
Mana is the, you know, it is it's your inner power. Yeah, because everyone has a degree of well, we have mana, and it's the connection you have to your ancestors. So from the beginning of your ancestry, from the very first one in your family, or who you are related to, that cultivation of mana needs to was taken care of, and it was cultivated. So not preserved, because you can preserve and perpetuate, but if you don't cultivate, then it's no sense, right? Because it'll just be there and nobody knows what the heck it's there for, and then nobody knows how to use it and to maintain it so that it can be accessed, but it also can be accepted. So mana grows, and you build up that power, you know, that spiritual power, that connection to your ancestry, but also application of it today. What do you need that mana for? You know, and that's the part that I need to work on constantly, because I can do things unconsciously and they can happen. I can think of something that I don't like, and it can go away, right? It can disappear, but not disappear. Something can happen to somebody or something because I didn't like what was happening. So where that mana comes from has to do with how long it took for me to be able to understand the difference between right and wrong. And when you know the difference between right and wrong over a life, you know, over your lifetime of experience, and knowing what the experiences were of your ancestors, then those experiences then create more of that mana. And because mana can also be something that's really like really radical. It just kind of can float around all over the place, and you can go get mana if you want it, you know, and you can go bring it to you. But if you don't know where that mana came from, then you're just bringing in energy that you shouldn't have, you know, in your own space, because you need to take care of it. That's where the cultivation comes in. So the vehicle, the car that you're going to put this mana in, you have to control that car. You have to know where you're driving it, how you need to take care of it. You need to make sure that you got enough, you know, gas in it so that it can go where it's supposed to go, and all of those things that go with it, because you're going to have to be the keeper of this, the kahu, or the one that takes care of this mana. And when you do that, then the mana through the ancestors, going back again to connecting, yeah, and just connecting back to where that mana comes from, you go back and you then allow it to move you, so that I have the ability to now do what I think, because of experience and because of what I've learned and who has taught me, and my respect for people and my support for certain things, and what I like and what I know is needed for the greater good. Then I tap into that mana, and I try to keep that, increase that. But when I put it out, I need to be knowing that when I put it out, and lately I've been putting it out, but it's been, sometimes it's been too much. People cannot handle it. And I've been told that as time goes on, more recently, I've been reminded that you cannot just put it out. You just cannot just go la da 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 and assume that people can handle it. Because although people will say, oh yeah, yeah, you know, the wow, you know, this is a wow thing, and you know, wow, you know so much, and you know this and you know that. They're actually not getting the information. They're just getting the energy because it's very strong. And so I have to know, right now, that's why I say I'm working on it, is trying to not so much control it, but to recognize it, to recognize what that mana is within myself, and how much subconsciously, the subconscious can, how strong the subconscious is. You know, what is already stored inside is that mana. So when I said that someone can take your mana from you, is because they can get into that subconscious because you're not aware that it's there, and take it away from you. But when you take somebody else's mana, you know, you don't really know what that is. And that's a whole nother place too. But am I answering
Well,
kind of?
yes, and a lot of this makes sense because what you're saying to me, and one of the important traditions that, and again, I'm making a lot of parallels with and translating this in my mind because it translates directly to a lot of my experiences. One of the important traditions that came with Africans to the Americas and the diaspora were Yoruba traditions. It's one of the kind of concrete traditions that we still have in place. It's an ethnic group from Nigeria. And the concept of Ashe is very, very similar. I mean, it's very tied to an ancestral force. It's a personal energy, it's a power. And so it had, you know, I mean, everything you're describing to me connects to that. And I love that. You know, I love that because for me personally, I also acknowledge indigenous ancestry as well, and have always been interested in some of these intersections of different indigenous culture in the Americas, so-called Americas, and African traditions as well. So it's great to hear you talking about that, because to me the connections there are as clear as day.
Yeah. And the environment, you know, the environment that you're in, of course, you know, adds to that, you know, what that mana really is, because you need to know your environment. You need to understand the environment that you're in and why you're in that environment in order to be able to recognize what that mana is.
Okay.
And
Tumu,
so
Tumu, it's interesting because if you don't mind, it's you know, in yoga they call it the prana, in sometimes referred to as the chi. In the Quechua, the culture of Peru, it's called the ko, you know, which the queros communicate. And you know what's being echoed also is, you know, we need to have clarity and be intentional with how we move our energy. And then a lot of these arts are here to help us understand it, you know, to help us understand the mana, like you say, where it's coming from, and to help us calibrate in order to project it and share it with intention. You know, because and I feel it's as times are kind of scattered and we have so much download of pretty wild information. You know, it's really important to ground ourselves with these arts that you really help sustain with the hula. And you know, we've talked the singing and the chanting and, you know, all these beautiful arts that you've helped sustain and pass on, help us to stay calibrated and focused. And I feel that that's, you know, that's a little bit like when we go back, when you're referring to aloha, and how how sometimes create changes in these words and dynamics, like give it different meanings, but really understanding the root of them and how aloha, at first when I was talking to Tumu, I was like, let's call the presentation the fierce aloha. And she's like, oh, people are gonna be scared. They're gonna get scared off.
Careful how you channel that mana, friend.
That fierceness has that, like I said, it's like outwardly people are like, oh, fierce, you know, but fierce can be just very devotional and very connected and very humbled by the arts. And you know, I'm humbled by Tumu. You know, I'm humbled by her and being around her. I feel that fierceness and that humility. So there's different ways, you know, sometimes even the word fierce can be misinterpreted. And to me, that's the fierce aloha. And that's the essence of the beautiful culture that Tumu speaks to, is that there's a lot of fierce humility and really reflection on the ancestors and on the arts, and really staying true and being humbled by these arts that help us to calibrate the mana and understand our intention and how we're going to share with the world. So I'm so
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next. Anybody else out there?
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the beautiful talk. I really enjoyed the idea of going backwards through a sequence, through a traditional sequence. And I was thinking, I have, my second mother is African, and I was really thinking I'm interested to find out what traditional dances she has, and maybe try that experiment of going backwards through the sequence of the dancing.
Is that,
Is
I'm
that
sorry.
wants to know? That's a question.
Oh, yeah. I think it's more of a comment. Just thank you so much. And again, like Salim, it's for me, I'm from South Africa, so it's more, I'm taking it into an African context, and it would be really interesting to try.
Yeah, it's beautiful how these stories apply, like Tumu's saying, to our traditions and understanding how they connect to where we're at.
Yeah.
Francisco, am I seeing, I'm only seeing the three of you.
Oh,
Is that-
I think it's the speaker view. Yeah, isn't it? So I think Tumu would have to go to the gallery view. Fran, you're muted, bro. Fran, you're muted, bro.
Go to the top right of your screen, Tumu, and you're gonna see a little icon there. It says speaker view. Click gallery, and then you'll see all the little boxes. Then you can see Lorna speaking.
Oh, I see. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, everyone?
yeah.
It's just participants.
There you go.
Okay.
Now you see Ife with a little baby over
Oh,
there.
look who's there.
By the way, his name is Pele, that little guy.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Lorna. That's fantastic. And I think, you know, one thing I really appreciate about this, you know, sharing, this offering, is the universality of like what you shared, and singing, chanting 3 times a day. Like, you know, it's just certain things. And obviously this is within a certain cultural context, but I feel like, you know, the power of it, and the reminder of this, that these are fundamentally human things that connect us with who we are kind of as a species. Like what the importance and value of us, you know, of how we express ourselves, of how we connect with ourselves, retaining, you know, our stories, you know, the ancestral knowledge and information, and remembering, you know, in all directions, you know, there's, you know, and you shake the tree, I mean, all sorts of stuff comes out, of course, but even acknowledging that, and knowing that, and connecting with it, you know, and connecting with those forces that are positive, you know, from
Yeah.
that ancestry.
Yeah. And learning, you know, learning and not, of course, not repeating the same mistakes. Because, you know, we make mistakes, but not doing it over and over again, or trying to fix it, you know, trying to fix what was wrong. We heal from that, and then not so much to recreate something new, but to have a balance in how we proceed, so that when we proceed and we do what we're doing it for the better good. And the population, I mean, the, you know, the populace has changed, the people have changed, but the environments are, you know, they're not exactly the same, but you still, now what we're seeing, you know, when the drastic, you know, no visitors, you know, just shut them all down and keep them out, you know, that that takes us back to, for me, you know, that's back when we were, I don't know, growing up, I think, you know, because it's always been about visitor industry, but it's never been about 30,000 people a day, you know, coming to the islands. I mean, it's like, oh, we didn't even realize we had that many people coming in every day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that really showed us that we need to not only be so dependent on it, but also think economically about, so what do we do? You know, we don't have access to the things that people say, oh yeah, you got to go do this, you got to go do that, go plant this, go plant that, do this, do that. Yeah, you can do that. But we used to do that already, right? The people were keeping their own, you know, growing their own food and doing all this stuff. But what is it that we really need to maintain? And I think we've realized that if we didn't go up to Mauna Kea, I think we would have been, with all that's happening now, we wouldn't have been able to accept it and to really get through this only 2 months. You know, it's not that bad after all. And it's, you know, we're going back to, I mean, we're not going back, but we know it's going to open up again, but it's going to be very different. It's going to be very different as to how we, not so much accept it, but how we deal with it and how we work with it. Because we know what we want and we know how we want to see it. We just have to be able to apply it. But there's now that up and coming generation that is very determined to do things that are, you know, are who we are. You know, keeping aloha sacred, keeping that mana going, you know, understanding what that mana is, and that there is nothing wrong with keeping what is sacred.
Yeah.
Because if not, then we don't have it. And then letting what is for everybody to have, but to understand that when it's put out there, you also need to know that if you're going to be a part of that, like with the food, right? You're going to be a part of what other people eat and what has been a tradition in their, how it's being put together and why it's being put together, and what does that mean once you consume it, then that's all part of that sharing. It tastes good, okay, but beyond that, the fact that you sit around and you talk story and you eat, right? You enjoy it and you are grateful for it, and where does it come from? So all of these kinds of things have to be a part of that spirit, yeah, that what has been now tagged as the aloha spirit. It has to mean more than just being the numbers, just the numbers, that you have to have the numbers in order to make it happen. And we're seeing that because all of the big events, the events that have become so much a part of our economic base, have been canceled because they're big. They're bringing a lot of people, and from, you know, not only from North America, but from other parts of the world. And so when you have everybody there, you know, and mingling, and the hardest part we've had with, you know, with all of this, having to wear a mask and all that, is, you know how we are. We're so open, you know, we're always laughing and hugging and kissing and being with people and talking story and just showing up at somebody's house and, you know, sitting down with them and being a part of whatever it is. I mean, even in the store, you go to the store so you can talk story. You don't go to the store so that you can shop, you know. I mean, it's so much a part of us that it's like, oh my gosh, we cannot even touch somebody. We have to stay, like, you know, 6 feet away or what. And it's like, oh, forget it already. You know, it's like, it's become such a, for us, it's become like this, you know, wearing a mask has just automatically threw us off, and we're getting used to it. But at the same time, it's still, in the beginning, it was scary because but we, you know, we know that aloha, and then we got to tap back into that mana, you know, to make sure that, okay, I know who I am and they know who they are, and we know why we're connected. So we have to stay connected like that. And so it's been, you know, now we're getting into how we can deal with it, but, you know, so that we're not so fearful of what is going to happen when it does open up again.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see, I think it has made, going up to Mauna Kea has made the politicians, everybody else who are in this, you know, whatever, the industry, controlling the industry, now realize that they're not really in control. They have to be in control. It's okay to say, no, you cannot go over there. No, you cannot.
For reference, Tumu, if you don't mind me adding, for reference, Mauna Kea is, and Tumu can speak a little bit more to the sacred space of it, but it's, they propose to build a massive, like astro watching, like star watching telescope on that mount and sacred space. And what Tumu was referring to, it really bonded a lot of people, and it made them talk story around, you know, the significance of the space, in order to say what she's saying now, which is like, no.
Yeah.
That's what she's referring to, that because of that moment it's, you know, what she was referring to earlier, that gathering and that, you know, that family vibe that took place is what's helping what's happening now.
Yeah. And it's really, and it's also identified, I think, for people who, you know, because we've been in it for 40 something years now or more, you know, pretty much all of our lives, that movement, because our parents were in the same movement, our grandparents were in the same movement in their own time. And now we are saying that this didn't go away, you know, arresting and evicting people from their homes and all of this stuff is just a retake. You cannot arrest the queen more than once. You did it once, but it just kept repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating till finally it's like, you can't keep doing that for nothing, you know? So the strength that we had to come together with was that we can do this, but we gotta stay together. We have to be together, and we have to be on the same page. We cannot be just thinking that, you know, this one is gonna get this and that one is gonna get this, and what we call the Amma Syndrome, which is the black crab, and how they all crawl around and the other one crawls and pulls down the other one and pulls down the other one. Instead of, you know, we gotta stay together. We cannot be pulling each other down.
Yeah,
And
another
so,
analogy that you shared was like, if the sharks are swimming, if you swim with the shark, you know, what are you expecting?
yeah, right, right. And you can, it's okay. Um, as long as they're fed and they're satisfied, it'll be okay. You can go swim with them. But you need to know that they already ate. So and the domain, who's who, right? The sharks belong out there. That's their place. So, we can go in the water because it's okay, but we can't be in the places where they're supposed to be, because that's their place. And so we've created a space again, that zenith to horizon. Where is it? What is it? Who am I in it? And when I know who I am, but it's it's working at it all the time, being able to recognize where you are. But it's in it takes a while to be in a good space. And yeah.
And we want to keep the conversation going, just to hold space for everyone here. I'm going to stop the recording, but we're going to keep flowing. And like I said earlier, for those that chimed in a little bit late, we will be posting this or Alexandra will be posting this on the blog section of the site. So you can, I know I'm going to be listening again. For sure. I'll be
I
paused.
better listen to myself so I know what I said here.
So I'll stop